Let's bow in. Welcome everyone to the Buddhist Path of Awakening course. Tonight we're going to be going over chapter 2 of Patrul Rinpoche's The Words of My Perfect Teacher. Michael is going to lead off.
Welcome everyone. So one of the images we were given last week, it was a set of 4, was to think of the Buddha or the guru, teacher, as a physician, ourselves as being ill with, as like a sick person, ill person, the Dharma as medicine, and then using the medicine as a path to recovery or a cure. And so we're getting our first dose of medicine tonight with the truth of impermanence, that all, as the Buddha said, all compounded things are impermanent. And through contemplating impermanence and letting that have some impact on our thinking, on our feeling, on our life, it works as a cure to some degree. So in the beginning of the chapter, it says there are 7 meditations on impermanence. And before we start getting into those, I just wanted to say a few things. That should think of this again as medicine, and that what we're doing in contemplating is engaging in a cure, a way of recovery from illness. The illness in particular of the kleshas, from delusion, illness of confusion, ignorance, whatever you want to call it. And that it's by engaging in these contemplations that we could begin to wake up. So could think of impermanence in one sense as just the things that things are constantly changing. But in this chapter in particular, it focuses on death, which is a sense of, and at least on a relative level, of real finality. That we contemplate death as a way of fully bringing a sense of impermanence into our lives. And the finality of death, that death is final from ego's point of view. Trungpa Rinpoche taught that actually if we're able to rest in nowness, that we actually experience birth and death all the time from moment to moment. But that's another way of coming to understand impermanence. But why would we want to contemplate death? Why would we want to contemplate impermanence? And the idea, basically, there are actually several reasons, but I think the key one is so long as we cling to things of this life, as long as we cling to hopes and fears about the future, as long as we cling to activities oriented toward the 8 worldly dharmas, gain, fame, and so on, pleasure and pain. So long as we're caught up in that, we won't practice Dharma. But instead, we end up practicing attachment, and we end up practicing the kleshas as we try to take in and hold on to and cling to the things that we find desirable and pleasurable, and push away the things that we don't, and ignore the rest. So the danger in becoming caught up in those kinds of activities is, as it says in one of the confession chants, is that we think there's ample time to do things later, when in fact the reality is there may not be, and we don't know that. And that's one of the points that comes up in this chapter. So contemplation of impermanence, contemplation of death, helps us begin to develop some sense of renunciation. It begins to help us begin to let go of the activities that can consume our lives, all to end in futility, as it makes very clear, as if we didn't know already, that whatever wealth we gain, whatever skills we might have, whatever relationships we might have, none of it comes with us when we die. But we die, we have to let go of all of it. And that in fact, the attachments that we have to any and all of these things make the dying process that much more difficult, that much more fearsome and painful. At the same time, I just wanted to say, and this goes back to the book that we read by Patrul Rinpoche, where he talks about the nature of binary thinking of conceptual mind, where we think something is or isn't, or think in kind of all or none terms. This doesn't mean the fact that we contemplation on death doesn't mean that we don't take care of relative things in this life. It's just that we have a realistic view of what we're doing and what it's going to do for us, what it's going to bring for us. That we realize that all the worldly pursuits won't really bring lasting happiness, won't really bring lasting security. That in the end, when we die, we have to let go of all of it. But again, that doesn't mean that we don't take care of relative, things in this life, but that we do so to the extent that we need to, without engaging in needless complication and struggle. But with full awareness that they're not going to bring any kind of ultimate freedom, any kind of ultimate lasting happiness. So this chapter really is looking at or coming at impermanence from the point of view of the samsaric mind. And again, it's like a medicine, and in contemplating it, it's like a cure to begin letting go of our tendency to get attached, our tendency to get consumed in activities in a way that distracts us from what's really important, in a way that gives us some perspective as to what's really important in life once we wake up. I will say, so in this chapter, it also talks about the experience of impermanence as one of sadness. And that's definitely true from the point of view of ego, or point of view of conceptual mind. I was telling John that I once had an interview with one of the Kagyu teachers, one of the great Kagyu teachers, and this was many years ago. And I said something, it was a small group interview, and I said that when I thought about impermanence, I felt great sadness. And his answer was, if I truly, fully understood impermanence, I would feel great joy. But clearly that's a fruitional point of view, where we're at, which I will come back to in a little while in terms of what that might mean. So again, there are 7 meditations on impermanence in this chapter. The first one is the impermanence of the outer universe in which beings live. And it begins with this sentence: our world, this outer environment fashioned by the collective good karma of beings, with its firm and solid structure encompassing the 4 continents, Mount Meru, and the heavenly realms, lasts for a whole kalpa. A kalpa is an immeasurable eon. It's a vast amount of time. It is nonetheless impermanent and will not escape final destruction by 7 stages of fire and 1 of water. So the idea of Mount Meru, the 4 continents, this is the view of the world cosmology. If you were in a 19th century Tibetan, that would be what you might think the world is. But the basic idea is that, again, that it's not permanent. I think for us, it might, to us that might seem like a myth. So instead, I thought maybe I'd just say a little bit about what we do tend to believe, which is that the universe was formed in something that physicists call the Big Bang. And that I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but if you even just study a little bit about it, it seems equally fantastical. That, for instance, there are actually different ideas about what this was, needless to say, but in one, this is a book. In the beginning, nearly 14 billion years ago, all the space and all the matter and all the energy of the known universe was contained in a volume less than 1 trillionth the size of the period that ends this sentence. So out of this infinitesimally small pocket of energy was this incredible burst that led to the formation of galaxies, stars, planets, and the universe. There are other ideas about what was there in the beginning. But the point is that at some point, this will come to an end. The Earth, at some point, the sun, which converts hydrogen into helium in fusion reaction that generates light and heat. At some point, the sun will begin to run out of fuel. Supposedly, this won't be for a few billion years, so we don't have anything to worry about in this lifetime. But when it does, the sun will begin to expand. It will consume the Earth. The Earth will be consumed in fire someday in the distant future. And even the ideas of the universe, that at some point, even though the universe continues to expand from this initial explosion that happened some 13 billion years ago, one idea is that at some point the expansion of the universe will stop and the universe will begin to contract again. And as it does, again, there'll be just tremendous, the forces of gravity and heat and pressure. And again, the universe will end in, a complete collapse of heat and fire. Another idea is that the universe, in fact, will just continue expanding, and at some point will expand so far that all of its energy will be expended, and it will become so cold that the universe will break apart, dissolve into fragments. In any case, certainly, even though we should not see it in our lifetimes, the universe is impermanent. At some point, this universe, all that we know, whether we believe the destruction of Mount Meru and the four continents through fire and rain, or whether we believe in the collapse of the universe at some point, or the contraction of the universe back into this primal fusion force, at some point the universe will come to an end. And as it says at the end, what we're supposed to contemplate with this is, and I'll quote it directly, reflect deeply and sincerely. If every one of the billion universes which constitute the cosmos is to be simultaneously destroyed, leaving only space behind, however could these human bodies of ours, which are like flies at the end of the season, have any permanence? So that's the impermanence of everything that we know, the finality, really, of everything that we know. In fact, the universe is constantly changing now, so it's not permanent in the sense of being unchanging, but there's a finality. And then, again, in Buddhist cosmology, the idea is that at some point another universe would form, and that this has already happened in timeless time and will continue to happen in timeless time. So the second contemplation is the impermanence of beings living in the universe. In other words, that's us. And as it says in the very beginning, no being escapes death. And as it says in the text, we know this, but we know this because it never occurs to us to ask or to wonder whether a person will die or not. We know that it'll happen. We don't know when, we don't know how, but we know that all beings die at some point. As it says in the text, death closes in, never pausing for an instant. Or as Pink Floyd says, another day passes and we're shorter of breath and one day closer to death. And this is the reality. Do we know, and as it says in the text, and this is part of the contemplation, do we know when or where we'll die? Right now, between this breath and the next, who can be sure that they'll live tomorrow? And the main point is that today is the time to be ready. So this is another reason for contemplating impermanence and death, is today is the time to be ready. That we should be practicing, we should be studying now. Take advantage of the time we have now. As it says, to wake up in good health is an event which truly deserves to be considered miraculous, yet we take it completely for granted. So another thing that comes out of the contemplation of impermanence is appreciation of this present moment, here and now. In general, it says in the text, we don't let awareness of death affect our attitudes to life. We spend time hoping and worrying about the future, struggling for gain, fame, status, likes, followers, whatever it might be that we're pursuing, until we're confronted by death. And at that point, nothing can help us. No army, it won't matter how rich we are, how beautiful, how accomplished, how strong, how loved we are, how feared we might be, whatever it is, that there's no escape from death. So again, this is the second contemplation. So again, we're asked to reflect sincerely and meditate on how important it is from this very moment onwards, never to slip into laziness and procrastination, but to practice the true Dharma, the only thing we can be sure will help us at the moment of death. The next section relates to the impermanence of holy beings, realized beings in the Buddhist tradition. And it talks about some of the miraculous powers that these people have displayed due to their realization, and how they're not able to not be harmed by elements, like not harmed by fire or water. But in the end, it says, they all chose to demonstrate that everything is impermanent, and today all that remains of them is their stories. And as for us, who are not realized in the way that, say, Milarepa was, our negative actions, carried along by the wind of negative conditions in the prevailing direction of our negative tendencies. So it's talking about the whatever actions we've done based on the kleshas. And again, it's described as like a wind that pushes us, forces us onward. This is talking about the momentum of karma, the momentum of habit, deep habit. Has driven us here into this, what calls a filthy contraption, which is basically our body made up of the four elements. And we can never be sure when or where this scarecrow of an illusory body will disintegrate. That therefore it's important from this very moment onwards to inspire ourselves to thoughts, words, and deeds, which are always positive. With this in mind, meditate on impermanence. So this is another way in which meditation on impermanence is helpful to us, because it really highlights the importance of positive actions and the importance of relinquishing negative actions. As we read last week, at the point of death, it's too late. So the point is that we need to take action now to begin letting go of negative deeds, to create negative karma, killing, stealing, lying, malicious gossip, all of the different things that form the 10 non-virtuous deeds, and engage in the 10 virtuous deeds, promoting life, being truthful, refraining from passion and aggression, so on and so forth. The next section talks about the impermanence of those in positions of power. And in this case, it's interesting because this section begins talking about the gods like Brahma and so on in the Hindu tradition, rishis, wise people, and perhaps in the Hindu tradition, as well as universal kings, rulers, conquerors. And the point being that empires don't last, and these, just as all of these beings have passed. For us, we could look at the ruins of ancient civilizations, Rome, Greece, Egypt as an example. Or another example of impermanence, because this comes into the contemplation that's connected with this at the end. There was a book that was published about 15 years ago called The World Without Us. It basically, it begins with a premise that for whatever reason, it doesn't really give a reason why, but just people just vanish from the earth. How long things will last once people are no longer here. And one example, for instance, is New York City, where because if it was not maintained, it would very quickly deconstruct. That in fact, they're pumping endless amounts of water out of subways. And if this was not maintained by people, buildings would collapse, bridges would collapse, and in a very short amount of time. It's an interesting book to read, The World Without Us. In the same way, how our houses that we live in, without people, without activity to maintain them, would collapse very quickly in less than 100 years and be overtaken by nature, between freeze-thaw cycles and ultraviolet radiation that breaks down materials and so on. So it's just another way to reflect on impermanence and change. Because the reflection here was to reflect on these past splendors, not necessarily our houses, but to reflect on the splendors of these empires and great civilizations that have come and gone from the face of the earth. And it says, compared to them, our own homes, belongings, servant status, and whatever else we prize, seem altogether no more significant than a beehive. Meditate deeply and ask yourself we can ask ourselves how we thought that those things would last forever and never change. And yet that is how we relate to things in our life. We often don't take into account impermanence. We don't see the impermanence in things. We let our hopes and fears or dreams of things lasting forever, when they won't, take us over and give us a false hope. So with that, I wanted to just read again very quickly, because this goes back to understanding impermanence from the point of view, perhaps, of more joy. I read this before from Old Path White Clouds, when the Buddha talks about happiness. The Buddha explained that the source of true happiness is living in ease and freedom, fully experiencing the wonders of life. Happiness is being aware of what is going on in the present moment, free from both clinging and aversion. A happy person cherishes the wonders taking place in the present moment. A cool breeze, the morning sky, a golden flower, a violet bamboo tree, the smile of a child. A happy person can appreciate these things without being bound by them. Understanding all dharmas as impermanent and without a separate self, a happy person does not become consumed even by such pleasures. A happy person thus lives in ease, free from all worry and fear. Because they understand that a flower will soon wilt, they're not sad when it does. A happy person understands the nature of birth and death of all dharmas. Their happiness is true happiness, and they do not even worry about or fear their own death. So, I think it's contemplation of death, contemplation of the impermanence of all things around us, the contemplation of ceaseless change, ceaseless arising and dissolving, arising and things coming together, things coming apart. Although from the point of view of ego, might bring some sense of sadness and loss, from another point of view can actually bring about freedom. And that's really what we're talking about here, ultimately. So again, contemplation, the truth of impermanence is the medicine, as the Dharma, and the cure is contemplation of the nature of impermanence and coming to see it as pervasive in all aspects of our life. So with that, I will turn it over to John for the more impermanence. John, you're muted.
So hold on just a second. Hi. Yeah, we're being enjoined to believe in our own impermanence, as well as the impermanence of everything in the world. We're going to start. Jill is going to read a poem. Jill, are you ready? And hold on a second, I'm going to highlight you. I hope.
John, I'm getting a gallery view.
Yeah, I'm going to. I think I can do this. Hold on. Where are you? There you are. Okay. They're spotlighted. No, that's not good. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Looks good now.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away."
Thank you. That's beautiful. Impermanence. That was my father's favorite poem. One of them, anyhow. And another story about him when he was dying. I spent the night at my parents' house the night he died. And in the morning, he had been in bed for a long time. His last words were, "I never thought it would be like this." So we're being enjoined to believe in our deaths the way Ozymandias didn't, the way my father never anticipated. It's very difficult. We tend to think that we're going to continue to live for a long time into an almost endless future where we can't see the end. And then it comes, like it did for my father, with those words, "I never thought it would be like this." And then he was gone. And I'm sure there's so many other stories. One never can anticipate it. I had a good friend, which some of you may have known, named Robin Kornman. We both met Trungpa Rinpoche that first summer at Tail of the Tiger, and both made a huge connection. Robin went on to get a PhD in Buddhist studies from Princeton and taught at the University of, I think it was Milwaukee or Minneapolis, I'm not sure. And he also did a lot of translation work, which is very valuable and is used today by people who have survived. But Robin found out he was diagnosed with a form of cancer called epithelioma. It's a form of cancer which you contract from exposure to asbestos. And Robin had helped his father remove asbestos from schools, public schools, from their ceilings as fire protection when he was a teenager. And as a result, he contracted this form of cancer, which is utterly lethal, and was told that he had 5 years to live. And he also got a huge amount of money. Johns Manville had been the manufacturer of that asbestos, and they went out of business because of all the claims from people like Robin. And they set up a fund for people like Robin, and Robin collected from that fund. And he came to New York and he stayed with me in my home at the time. And he had a lot of money and he was taking people out to shows and dinners. And then he went back to wherever he lived, I forget. And he took up studying the piano. And he had a friend who was a woman, a doctor, and she accompanied him everywhere. She was his student and his friend, Buddhist student. And one day she accompanied him to his piano lesson. She told me after he took the lesson, seemed to really enjoy it, stood up from the piano and died. Right there, on the spot, instantly. This chapter is very much about waking us up to our own impending deaths, that this is going to end. It's hard to believe. We know it intellectually. And yet we continue to live as though it was never going to end. And what this chapter is all about, the Buddhist teachings in this, presented in this way, is understand it is going to end. And the only thing that one can really do to prepare for that is the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma, to awaken, to achieve enlightenment. Every day I do a practice in which it says that the Dharma is the only protection from death And that when one achieves awakening, enlightenment, which means waking up from this dream of I and other, me and my pleasures and hopes and fears, it's as though one were awakening from a huge dream. And that the cure for one's suffering in this life is permanent. They say it's like recovering from smallpox. You can never get it again if you survive. So we're being enjoined to awaken from this dream of suffering before we're sort of caught short, before we suddenly find ourselves saying, I never thought it would be like this, or whatever it might be. So this chapter starts, I just read this, it's a wonderful beginning. It starts with a quote. Excuse me. This is Patrul Rinpoche speaking. Seeing this threefold world. Threefold means it's the world of desire, which is the human realm all the way down to the hell realms. And then there are two other realms that I hope we're not inhabiting. They're the realms of the formless and form gods. And these are purely mental states, states of concentration, trance states that you can achieve by focusing your mind one-pointedly on an object. And so there are these three worlds. The worlds of the formless gods are the highest, but they're still samsaric. They're still confused sentient beings, but they've just tamed their minds immensely, focused them. Then beneath that is the realm of gods of pure form, and beneath that is the desire realm where we live with animals and hell beings and hungry ghosts and all the rest. So seeing this threefold world, these three levels, all samsara, all confusion, as fleeting illusion, just an illusion. It's just a mental creation, just like this class, and it'll be gone in a minute. You have left this life's concerns behind like spittle in the dust. He's talking about his teacher now. Patrul Rinpoche is talking about his teacher. Accepting all hardships, you have followed in the footsteps of the masters of old. Peerless teacher, at your feet I bow. And then he begins into these teachings on impermanence. They are so important because without absorbing them and taking them to heart, we're living a dream. We're living as though this is never going to end. And it is. We may know it intellectually, but if we were to really take it to heart, we might live our lives very differently. So, picking up where Michael left off, part 5, other examples of impermanence. He says, consider the cycle of growth and decline that takes place over a kalpa. A kalpa is the length of time it takes for a universe, a cosmos, to be born, endure, and die, with all its worlds. That's a kalpa. And there have been many, countless, innumerable, millions and millions and billions of kalpas. Long ago in the first age of this kalpa, there were no sun and moon in the sky, and all humans were lit up by their own intrinsic radiance, it says. They could move miraculously through space. They were several leagues tall. Remember, a league is about, 6 or 8 feet? They were several leagues tall. They fed on divine nectar and enjoyed perfect happiness and well-being, matching that of the gods. Gradually, however, under the influence of negative emotions and wrongdoing, the human race slowly degenerated to its present state. Even today, as those emotions become ever more gross, human lifespan and good fortune are still on the decrease. Now we think we're living longer, but it says here it's on the decrease. And people are dying all over the world as the world becomes increasingly populous. This process will continue until humans live no more than 10 years. Most of the beings living in this world will disappear during periods of plague, war, and famine. And hasn't this happened before? Then to the survivors, an emanation of the Buddha Maitreya, he's the Buddha of the future, will preach abstinence from killing. And he goes on to describe that human beings at that time will be only 1 cubit tall. That's 18 inches. Who knows? And their lifespan will increase at that point to 20 years and then gradually become longer and longer until it reaches an incalculable length, 80,000 years. Finally, this kalpa will end in destruction, as they all do. Examining such changes, you can see that even on this vast scale, nothing is beyond the reach of impermanence. Each kalpa may or may not have one or many Buddhas in it. There are kalpas that are called dark kalpas that have no Buddhas and there's no Dharma, and they go on for millions of years. And then there are kalpas that have many Buddhas, like our kalpa does, the most prominent being Shakyamuni, but there were Buddhas before him. It says, the poor become rich, the powerful powerless, everything changes. Nothing stays the same forever. Your family, relatives, friends, all change and pass, and don't we know that? How many of our family and friends have died? When I was 70, I got the news that my college roommate had died. I hadn't seen him in many years, since college. And it was a big shock. I think it was the first time that someone really close to me died. And since then, wow, so many people I know are dying. I'm 79 now. I was 70 in the last 9 years. Isn't it the case for so many of you? As we age, we know a lot of people, and we know more and more people who are growing ill and dying. There is absolutely nothing in the universe, animate or inanimate, that has any stability or permanence. No matter who or what you are, when death suddenly comes, there is nothing you can do about it for even a moment. You just have to leave everything behind. Your dearly beloved body, too, is going to be left behind. As Jetson Milarepa says, this thing we call a corpse, so fearful to behold, is already right here, our own body. So when you die, you have no choice but to wander all alone in the bardo. You leave your body behind, and the consciousness wanders in the bardo. And these are teachings that we can explore at a later time, what the bardo actually is. The bardo literally means interval. The word means bardo is from to. And there are 6 main intervals in life, although there's the interval of this class. You could call this a bardo. But there are 6 main intervals. There's the interval of this life, which begins when you are born and ends when you contract the condition that's going to kill you. And in that period of time, your life, the bardo of this life, there are 2 more intermediate bardos, smaller bardos, the bardo of dream, which you experience every night, and the bardo of meditation, which we practice together. And then there are the 3 death bardos. The bardo of dying, painful bardo of dying, which begins at the moment that you, sorry, Michael, Let's see if I can do this. Having trouble finding you, Michael. There we are. Okay. So there's the bardo that begins at the moment you contract the condition that's going to kill you. It's called the painful bardo of dying, and it describes the whole process of dying, the falling away of the physicality of life and then of the mental aspects of life. And then there are two more bardos. There's what called the bardo of reality, which if you've trained enough during this lifetime, you can see this cosmos, this world, as it truly really is, and in fact, achieve enlightenment in the bardo of reality. But most people haven't trained enough, and they just snap right through it to the third bardo of death bardo, which is called the bardo of becoming. This is like a dream state. And in it, you have the body, you dream that you have the body of a 6 or 7-year-old child. And eventually, you are propelled, you see at the end of that bardo, the bardo of becoming, you look down on earth, and if you're going to be reborn a human, which you definitely want to be, you see your parents copulating, and you are attracted to one or the other and enter the mother's womb and are reborn. If you're attracted to the man, you enter the mother's womb as a woman, and vice versa. If you're attracted to the woman, you enter the woman's womb as a man and a reborn male. And then it starts all over again. But you don't have to be reborn a human being. You can be reborn an animal, a hell being, a god. It just depends on your karma. You want to be reborn a human being because it's the only birth from which one can achieve enlightenment and escape from this endless cycle of birth and death. So, no matter what you are, when death comes, there is nothing you can do about it even for a moment. You just have to leave everything behind. When Milarepa says, when you die, you have no choice but to wander all alone in the bardo, without a single companion. At that time, your only refuge will be the Dharma. So tell yourself again and again that from now on, you must make the effort to accomplish at least one practice of genuine Dharma. It's a matter of waking up instead of just dreaming one's life away, watching TV, pursuing pleasures and trying to avoid pain, which is impossible. So you can't hang on to your wealth and possessions forever. I'm just checking the time. Never forget that generosity is the most important capital to build up. It's the capital of merit. And what it means is that you'll be reborn better if you practice generosity. So there's no way we can avoid being separated from those we care for in the end. No coming together can last forever. It will always end in separation. There's no way we can avoid being separated. We cannot even be sure that death or some other terrible event might not suddenly part us right now. It happens. People die suddenly, unexpectedly. Since spiritual companions, couples, and so forth might be split up unexpectedly at any moment, we had better avoid anger and quarrels, harsh words and fighting. We never know how long we might be together, so we should make up our minds to be caring and affectionate for the short while that we have left. As Padampa Sangye, he was a famous teacher, says, families are as fleeting as crowds on market day. People of Tingri, don't bicker or fight. everything is bound to collapse, whatever buildings we build, villages and monasteries, whatever it might be. And then there'll only be birds' nests. So why do we attach so much importance to everything that we build and create? He talks about the four basic aims of the Kadampas. The Kadampas were practitioners, was a movement that went to Tibet from India, a Buddhist movement led by Atisha. He says, four basic aims: base your mind on the Dharma, base your Dharma on a humble life, base your humble life on the thought of death, base your death on an empty, barren hollow, which means die alone in a remote place where there are no disturbances, because you can't take anything with you. Of all those who wield power and authority, not a single one can keep his or her position forever. Many powerful people who have been imposing law on others one year find themselves spending the next languishing in prison. What use could such transitory power be to you? The state of perfect Buddhahood, on the other hand, can never diminish or be spoiled. It is worth the offerings of gods and men. That is what you should determine to attain. Friendship and enmity, too, are far from everlasting. They both disappear, even within one lifetime. It often happens that sworn enemies are later reconciled and make friends. On the other hand, people intimately linked by blood and marriage often argue and do each other as much harm as they can for the sake of some trivial possession or paltry inheritance. Couples or dear friends can break up for the most insignificant of reasons. Seeing that all friendship and enmity is so ephemeral, remind yourself over and over again to treat everyone with love and compassion. So, this is the impact of impermanence, that we should treat everyone with love and compassion, because we could die at any instant, and so could they. Fortune and sorrow are so unpredictable. Simply leave all the comforts, wealth, and pleasures of this world behind, Patrul Rinpoche says. Like so much spittle in the dust. Leave all the comforts, wealth, and pleasures of this world behind, like so much spittle in the dust. Resolve to follow in the footsteps of the conquerors of the past, the Buddhas, accepting courageously what hardships you have to suffer for the sake of the Dharma, so that we truly wake up. This is the message of impermanence. In worldly life, he says, however authoritative and eloquent you may be, however erudite and talented, however strong and skillful, the time comes when those qualities decline. Once the merit you have accumulated in the past is exhausted, everything you think is contentious and nothing you do succeeds. You are criticized from all sides. You grow miserable and everyone despises you. Some people lose whatever meager advantages they once had and end up without any at all. Others, once considered cheats and liars, with neither talent nor common sense, later find themselves rich and comfortable, trusted by everyone, and esteemed as good and reliable people. We can think of examples like this. So whether someone appears to be good or bad, just at present, therefore is but a momentary impression that has no permanence or stability whatsoever. So banish all self-centered beliefs and arouse the wisdom of egolessness. This is the only safety, the only escape. Arouse the wisdom of shunyata. Until you attain the sublime bodhisattva levels, no appearance, whether good or bad, can ever last. So meditate constantly on death and impermanence. Analyze your own faults and always take the lowest place. Be modest. Cultivate dissatisfaction with samsara and desire for enlightenment. Train yourself to become peaceful, disciplined, and conscientious. Constantly develop a sense of poignant and deep sadness at the thought of the transitoriness of all compounded things. That's us. And this, everything. And the sufferings of samsara. So free yourself with the Dharma while you can. That's the important thing. That's what we're about here, to free ourselves with the Dharma while we can, and resolve to practice as long as you live. Nothing, from the highest states of existence down to the lowest hells, has even a scrap of permanence or stability. Everything is subject to change. Everything waxes and wanes. And the only escape from this is the Dharma, enlightenment, awakening, liberation. As long as we are concerned with ourselves, we're trapped in this. The next section is called The Uncertainty of the Circumstances of Death. Starts with the statement, everything that is born, that exists, will die. Every human, though when and where cannot be predicted. All kinds of mortal dangers abound, but only a very few things can prolong life. So, death is entirely unpredictable when it comes, what causes it. There's no guarantee that death will not suddenly strike right now. That tomorrow you will not be reborn as an animal. I think of so many of my friends who died. When I was in college, I had a very close friend who was Iranian, Hossein Ziai. Susu, we called him. He died. He became a professor of Iranian literature at UCLA, and he died of a disease. I had another friend, a guy named Mike Alford, with whom we took acid. All of us did in those days, and had adventures. A couple of years after college, he discovered he had cancer and died. These were young deaths. And I'm sure many people in this room, many of you listening, can describe similar. You should be quite sure that when you are going to die is unpredictable, that there is no knowing where you will be born next. We all think it's predictable. We think, oh, I'm 79. I'll probably live to be 90. What am I going to do with these remaining years? You never know. So the intense awareness of impermanence is I think this is the last section, yes. He says, meditate single-mindedly on death all the time and in every circumstance. While standing up, sitting, or lying down, tell yourself, this is my last act in this world. And meditate on it with utter conviction. Wow. Wherever you are, you should wonder if this might be where you die. Wherever you happen to be. When you go to bed at night, when you rise in the morning, meditate only on death earnestly and from the core of your heart. Like the Kadampa, remember that sect, Kadampa Geshes, these are teachers, who turn their bowls over at night. When you turn your bowl over, you're saying, I don't want food. I'm not going to be here to eat. So every night they turn their bowls over because they might die during the night. So the only thing that is of any use at the moment of death is the Dharma, the teachings. You need to remember and practice at all times authentically, remembering that the activities of samsara are transient and without the slightest meaning. And the main way that we practice is just by coming present, right here, looking at this screen, aware of my skin, the sensation as I touch my chin, the sound of this voice, and each one of you aware of your seat, your thoughts, whatever is in your room. We come back to that again and again. This is the only protection at death. Because if we get lost in dreams, we'll be propelled into another dream, and it might not be a good one. I have a note to myself to read a paragraph here from the book. This is on page 55. Wherever you are, all places are impermanent. So keep the pure Buddha fields in mind. Food, drink, and whatever you enjoy are impermanent. So feed on profound concentration. Sleep is impermanent. So while you are asleep, purify sleep's delusions into clear light. This is talking about doing dream yoga, becoming aware of your dreams. Wealth, if you have it, is impermanent. So strive for the 7 noble riches. These are faith, discipline, learning, generosity, conscientiousness, modesty, and wisdom. Loved ones, friends, and family are impermanent. So in a solitary place, arouse the desire for liberation. High rank and celebrity are impermanent. So always take a lowly position. Speech is impermanent. So inspire yourself to recite mantras and prayers. Faith and desire for liberation are impermanent. So strive to make your commitments unshakable. Ideas and thoughts are impermanent. So work on developing a good nature. Meditative experiences and realizations are impermanent. So go on until you reach the point where everything dissolves in the nature of reality. At that time, the link between death and rebirth falls away. Means you're not going to be reborn. And you reach such confidence that you are completely ready for death. You have captured the citadel of immortality. You are like the eagle, free to soar in the heights of the heavens. After that, there is no need for any sorrowful meditation on your approaching death. As followers of the Buddha, the idea of impermanence is unsurpassed, he says. And then there's one more thing I wanted to read. No, maybe 2 more. This is from Geshe Potava. If you want to use a single Dharma practice, to meditate on permanence is the most important. At first, meditation on death and impermanence makes you take up the Dharma. In the middle, it conduces to positive practice. In the end, it helps you realize the sameness of all phenomena. At first, meditation on impermanence makes you cut your ties with the things of this life. In the middle, it conduces to your casting off all clinging to samsara. In the end, it helps you take up the path of nirvana. At first, meditation on impermanence makes you develop faith. In the middle, it conduces to diligence in your practice. In the end, it helps you give birth to wisdom. At first, meditation on impermanence, until you are fully convinced, makes you search for the Dharma. In the middle, it conduces to practice. In the end, it helps you to attain the ultimate goal. At first, meditation on impermanence, until you are fully convinced, makes you practice with diligence, which protects you like armor. In the middle, it conduces to your practicing with a diligence in action. In the end, it helps you to practice with a diligence that is insatiable. Yeah. Okay. So meditation on impermanence is therefore the prelude that opens the way to all practices of the Dharma. And then one more quote from Geshe Potawa. Think about death and impermanence for a long time. Once you are certain that you are going to die, you will no longer find it hard to put aside all harmful actions, nor difficult to do what is right. After that, meditate for a long time on love and compassion. Once love fills your heart, you will no longer find it hard to act for the benefit of others. Meditate for a long time on emptiness, the natural state of all phenomena, that nothing truly exists, everything is passing like that gesture. Once you fully understand emptiness, you will no longer find it hard to dispel all your delusions. So we start by generating bodhicitta, which is the intention to be of benefit to others. As the main practice, you train your mind by all these various means until impermanence really permeates your every thought. And this is just coming back to complete open awareness. And finally, conclude your practice by sealing it with the dedication of merit. And then here's one that he gives us. Impermanence is everywhere, yet I still think things will last. I have reached the gates of old age, yet I still pretend I am young. Bless me and misguided beings like me, that we may truly understand impermanence. That's the end of my presentation of this chapter. What an amazing invocation of impermanence and death. And I keep thinking of my father saying, as he died, the last words, I never thought it would be like this. And then he was gone. So we could have a discussion.
Ed?
Hi, Michael, thank you. Although this comparison that I'm going to make pales in comparison to your description of the evolution and dissolution of the Big Bang, when John was reading on page 45, other examples of impermanence. All human beings, in the beginning, right? All human beings were lit up by their own intrinsic radiance. They could move miraculously through space, blah, 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 blah. However, under the influence of negative emotions and wrongdoing, the human race degenerated. Isn't that a parallel? Well, can't we see a parallel to the Garden of Eden in the Judeo-Christian tradition? So I just thought I'd share that. And also when Jill was reading the poem Ozymandias, it certainly evokes images of the Middle East somehow, and whose mind is not in the Middle East these days? Do we remember the Shah of Iran? Less than 2 years before he was overthrown, he invited all the important people in the world to Persepolis, which is, rocks in the desert with stones and columns. And he made it at a huge cost to his country's treasury, this big party, and he created his own so-called peacock throne. And then, like I said, within 2 years, he was living off the good graces of Anwar Sadat. He'd been thrown out and overthrown. What a riches to rags, if you will, story. And I just why I raised both of these examples is that we're reading something from a tradition that's novel to us, let's say, but maybe thinking of these examples might make the examples in the book perhaps a little more relevant.
Reza Pahlavi.
Yes.
I remember back in the day when he was still in power, there was a couple in our community. Her father was head of the Aspen Institute. And my wife at the time and I took a vacation and went up to Aspen to stay in a hotel. And the daughter of the head of the Aspen Institute, who was a friend of ours, invited us over to their house. The Shah had been there. And the house was absolutely chock-a-block with gifts from the Shah. It was amazing. So much stuff, So anyhow, Mark.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you all. Yeah, I just, this is a great chapter to me, and I think it's important that we definitely focus if we really have I think we're inviting death into our daily practice so that we get over it. I mean, it seems like that's where it's going, to be in the moment and not to be so, because inherently it's very samsaric if we just look at it, and every day we get up and we say, death. I mean, we're worrying about something that's going to happen in the future. And yes, it's not hypothetical. Yes, it's definitely going to happen. But I just want to bring up, there's so many miracles that I mean, here we are, 2,500 years ago, approximately, we have the Buddha. And we have this wonderful practice. And here we are in the moment with these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teachers and this amazing Sangha. And, what hope did we have before? I mean, it's just so unbelievable, the luck we all have right here. And, a 13.8 billion year old universe. And here we are in this moment. See, I happen to personally believe there's more to this than meets the eye. Birth, death, this timeline, nothing makes sense. Here we are. We think we're so smart, and yet we really don't know where matter comes from or where the universe comes from. No matter how small scientists explain to me, oh, yes, it was 10, one, whatever length of, that this tiny speck, you still started with something. What is matter? How does, the world that we live in, that's solid, and consciousness, and self-consciousness, and living to be alive. All matter is pretty much dead, and here we are, and somehow we come from matter in this world, and somehow we get to live and walk around and have a beating heart where 999% of everything is not alive. And we can't recreate this. again, we're so advanced, and yet, and again, we talk about these, I want to bring up science because again, Michael brought up the science, and I think it's important to look at how amazing the world is, that our world is in the moment, and to really appreciate, the six knowables and the beautiful world that we live in the moment, without getting focused in past and future. I think it's so key to our liberation. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. My tirade.
Sounded good.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and if nothing else, if I can get away from Trump when I die, that's really all the fuck I want.
That would be worthwhile.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
That was great.
Don?
Yeah, I really appreciated Mark's comments and the comments on science, and what I mean is, it does sound, when I listen to this, in some ways it sounds very dour and serious, and I think that's part of the point, is to kind of wake up and take things seriously. And at the same time, you shared that story, Michael, about in the small group interview, the idea of it being a source of joyfulness. And once in a while, I listen to philosophers that are way over my head, that I can barely understand. And one of the guys I listen to, his name is Bernardo Kastrup. He identifies himself as an analytic idealist. And that's what he has, his doctorate in philosophy. But he also has a doctorate in computer engineering. He was big in the early development of microchips and AI, and worked at CERN. And anyway, he was making the point that, we talk about the Big Bang as an event. And if you think about it, they're saying that the time and space didn't exist before the Big Bang. But to have an event, you have to have time and space. And so the point is that this is all like metaphors, just like you were saying in the beginning about kalpas and all this stuff. And it's somehow as a way to like conceptualize things. But when he was making, which I hear, John repeat a lot, is that at any given moment, there's arising and passing, arising and passing. In other words, there's constant Big Bangs, constantly. There's death and, and so not to take away about the seriousness and almost dourness of the message, it's also like a point of appreciation for this idea of the constant death and birth, and how creative that is. Like in an instant, always things appear and disappear, and like living within that as a way of having appreciation for the miraculous. Anyway, thanks. That's all I have.
Okay. What John was presenting on the Bardos reminded me of a brief, well, somewhat brief piece by Trango Rinpoche on the importance of practicing in this life that I would like to share. Basically, it's on the Bardo teachings. Basically, what he says is, what is the principal practice that we should be doing in our present state, the natural Bardo between birth and death, to prepare ourselves for death? The most obvious difference between this state, in other words, our current waking state, the most obvious difference between this state or this Bardo and, for example, the Bardo of becoming, which occurs after death, is in the quality of the appearances which arise. The appearances which arise to us now, no matter how unstable our minds may be, are grounded in our physical bodies. Being so grounded causes stability of place and location. For example, in our present state, when we think of some place other than where we are, our minds will still stay where we are because our minds are held here by our bodies. Therefore, in this present bardo, the natural bardo between birth and death, appearances are characterized by a stability produced by this physical groundedness. However, in the bardo of becoming, because the body and mind have separated, and the mind is, therefore, no longer physically grounded, the mind is unstable. When the mind thinks of a place, it immediately finds itself there. Then again, thinking of some other place, it finds itself at that other place. So the mind is unstable in the bardo of becoming. Even if it wishes to, it cannot stay in one place. Therefore, the practice of meditation in this life, in our present state of physical groundedness, will help in that future bardo a great deal. If you practice meditation during your life, then the principal benefit that you gain is control over your mind and freedom of mind. If you do not practice meditation, then you will not be able to send the mind to a chosen place, or to hold the mind on a chosen object in the bardo. Through the practice of meditation, you gain the ability to apply your mind to a chosen object or state of mind and to hold it there. This produces a stability of mind which is very helpful after death in the bardo of becoming, in which the only stability is produced by mental stability and not by physical groundedness as it is in this present life. Therefore, we should practice.
It always comes back to that.
I remember years ago, Dzongtsar Khyentse Rinpoche told us if you want to experience what it's like in the bardo of becoming, which is like a dream state, you know, you have the body of a 7-year-old child, and in dream states, everything changes very rapidly. You know, one minute you can be in Oshkosh and the next minute you're in Tallahassee. Everything's flying around. It slows up, it speeds down, it speeds up, it slows down. He said, if you want to experience what that's like, the bardo of becoming, which is what most people experience after they die and they go right, you know, when the body shuts down, the mind shuts down, boom, they miss the bardo of reality. It goes by in a finger snap, and they're plunged into the bardo of becoming. So he said, if you want to experience it, go and meditate in Times Square in New York, in the middle of the day. Now, I know there are people in this room who've been to Times Square. You know, it's total wild activity. It's just cars and trucks streaming by in these big roads and in their lights and the huge billboards that go up, you know, 10 stories and are flashing pictures, and it's just crazy. So we did. I did it with a friend of mine named Peter Seidler and some other people. We took about maybe 6-8 people. And there is a ticket booth, for those of you who remember, where they sell last-minute tickets that shows that couldn't get rid of, and they sell them really cheap. And there's a booth right in the middle of Times Square where you can go up and you can buy tickets cheap at the last minute. We put down our meditation cushions right by that booth, 10 of us. People are streaming by, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And we sat there, you know, for an hour. We did that 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 different days. The bardo of becoming. Oh yeah. Well, who else? This is such potent stuff.
Oh, it is. That it is.
Val.
I'll just say there's some comfort in the realization that I'm not alone.
What kind of comfort? Elaborate.
It's just this conscious thought that comes to me. It's like I'm here with all of you in just this fractional moment. And I'm not alone. I don't have to struggle alone unless I choose to. That's samsara, choosing to be alone, to struggle, to work, to deny. And the ego like gobbles that up. And as soon as I connect with all of you and the world and look at all transitions as valuable and not get caught in trying to intellectualize or understand, it just is the common denominator. I am not alone. That's all. Thank you.
Life is so unpredictable. A few years ago, I met up with my best friend from college. It was after that retreat we did at Karme Choling, that group retreat. And I made a date with his wife to meet them in Boston. And I discovered this my best friend. He looked great. Had lost his mind. He was just not here. Life is uncertain.
Hmm. Lost his mind.
I think one of the strongest messages of impermanence I got was my father-in-law had a stroke and lost the ability to read, which anything you'd think was, but it's not permanent.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're almost at an end. We'll be continuing this conversation tomorrow.
I should also let people know that Sue and I will be traveling for the next couple of weeks, so I'll be back at toward the end of June. So my mind will be with you, but my body will be somewhere else.
And we're talking about taking a month off this summer. July, right?
Yes,
July?
Yeah, taking the month of July off from class.
not from meditation.
We'll still have meditation twice a day, every day. But maybe taking it off from class for 1 month. Summer vacation? Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll announce it formally.
Well, as we're practicing.
Oh, well, we're not going to stop practicing.
No.
Trungpa Rinpoche emphasized it over and over again. He said, please meditate every day. And I've heard this from so many teachers, the importance of meditating daily.
Mm.
It builds, it has its effect. I remember him saying,
Well, I think you and Michael deserve the time off because I know, yeah, I mean, it's clear how much work you both put into this, and it's amazing and impressive. So please take a month for yourself.
well, it's summer vacation. But he used to say to us, please meditate. He says, please just do it. It works. That was his bird song. Just do it. It works.
Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, he's the one who he came up with the concept of that everything is born and dies in that same moment.
Well, that's traditional Hinayana.
That is okay.
Yeah.
He presented it very clearly to us, but
Yeah.
that goes all the way back to the Buddha.
Yeah, really. He didn't invent that one.
I thought somebody said he said it, that he had anyway. It's great, I think, to really take that in. And if the moment is so short, and we only live in this moment. You know, it's
Yes.
really very limited and wonderful.
Well, I guess it's time to stop.
Can I ask one question of John? John, you mentioned, I think you read something that the Buddha said about a happy person cherishes the wonders of the present moment without being bound by them. And
I read that.
Oh, you read that.
That was
Where did that come from?
Old Path, White Clouds, Thich Nhat Hanh's biography of the Buddha.
Thich Nhat Hanh's biography of the Buddha. Thank
It
you.
is.
Old Path, White Clouds. Thank
There
you.
it is, right in John's Old Path, White
Oh,
Clouds.
wow.
Big book.
Yeah, some,
Oh,
it's a lot of pages.
oh.
But
Well, maybe that we can do as a text in the fall.
It's almost 600 pages.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can. I'm gonna take a look at it, Michael, maybe consider it for that. So I'll put the chants up, and who wants to lead? Michael?
I could do it. I can actually put the chants up so that I have it. So let me just mute us all. And we'll close with a prayer for peace, and by dedicating the merit generated through our practice and study for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times, and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Michael.
Michael.
Good job.